and welcome to another episode of the Family Gamers Podcast. This is episode 404.
Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of the show. Another one we're excited for. We're excited for these things all the time. At least I am. Nature, are you excited for these shows?
I'm kind of excited.
All right, well, we are the Family Gamers. As always, I'm your host, Andrew, and I am joined by my lovely and wonderful wife, who I've already mentioned, Anitra.
That's me.
And this week, it is episode 404. Don't worry, we are found. This week, we are going to talk about connections.
Yeah, so this is inspired by a conversation that got kicked off on Facebook after our last podcast. And that conversation went in some interesting directions, and I'm hoping that this podcast can too.
Yeah, I mean, there was some other stuff in the Facebook community that kind of just got us thinking about how we connect with our kids. And of course, like, that's what this show is all about.
Pretty much, yeah.
So we thought we'd talk about some connection stuff. But before that, I have a fact. Are you ready? I have two facts. Are you ready, Anitra?
Sure.
Two facts. Okay. So the first one, well, they both come from the other side of the world. The first one starts a long time ago, in 404 BC.
Okay.
In 404 BC, Sparta finally defeated Athens, ending the Second Peloponnesian War. Whoop-de-doo. So here's the deal. Back then, really actually throughout the 5th century BC, Greece was made up of these like territorial micro-empires. I guess that's the best way for me to say it. The two big ones were the Athenian Empire and the Spartan Empire. And they were fighting back and forth. Sometimes they were at peace, sometimes, they very much were not. And eventually in 413 BC, it just blew up and it was just all out fighting. The war lasted almost 10 years, but led by Lysander, Sparta eventually defeated the Athenians by destroying the majority of the Athenian boat fleet, and Athens surrendered. Later on, Greece was united as one nation, actually by the Macedonians, who just took over everything except for Sparta. And then in 331 BC, Alexander also defeated Sparta, which finally united Greece as a single nation. That being said, interesting factoid, it actually took a while before Sparta and Athens would officially sign a peace treaty. Do you want to guess how long it took for them to do that?
I mean, I would assume by the time of like the Roman Empire, since they were both subsumed into the Roman Empire.
So that's a true thing. But officially, Athens and Sparta did not sign a peace treaty until 1996.
What?
I mean, It was, at that point, clearly it was like a ceremonial thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, it didn't really matter, but there was no actual peace treaty signed between
That's like
two,
Texas signing a peace treaty with Florida or something.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Oh my goodness.
All right, so fact number 2. 808 years after Athens surrendered to Sparta.
Wait, so that's another 404.
That is another, thank you. See, there we go. That was actually the year the last gladiatorial games were held in Rome.
Oh, all right.
So,
404 AD-ish.
Yep. So you hear about all the gladiators and all the cool stuff they did, and Russell Crowe's amazing and whatever, but that actually hasn't happened for like 1600 years. So anyway, that's a way shorter fact than the Spartan and Athens one, but yeah, those are my two facts about 404.
I like that you figured out how to tie together 404 BC and 404 AD. Good job.
I mean, you can thank history for that, I guess.
Sure.
All right. Well, you've got a fact as well about our sponsor.
Our sponsor, First Move Financial, wants to help make us all more aware of some of the newer scams that are out there. The most popular scam right now is any variation of the authority scam. What this looks like is that a scammer will claim to be someone who has a position of authority over you, like the IRS, or your mortgage lender, or a police officer, something like that. And then they will use that position of authority to lower your guard. At the same time, they will likely put time pressure on you, which might look like, your credit card was stolen and it appears to be in use right now. For us to cancel the card, we need you to verify your social security number and your date of birth. Refuse to be rushed. Take your time, hang up, and call back the number for this authority that you find online for whoever it was who claimed to be calling. Also, ask questions. Scammers get annoyed at delays and often lose decorum and start switching to bullying tactics instead. No bank, police officer, or any other legitimate entity will ever ask for your private data when they call you on the phone. If you'd like to talk to someone about how you can protect your financial assets, remember, you can book a free meeting with First Move at firstmovefinancial.com/familygamers.
Thanks so much to the team at First Move Financial for sticking with us for 200 and something episodes, 230 episodes or something like that. It's insane. You guys are absolutely amazing. And I love it when I read or listen to these facts and I'm like, okay, I'm going to write that down and keep note of that. So
I'm gonna keep that
thank
in
you very
mind.
much to First Move for being partners with us in this whole thing. All right, Anitra, I think it's time that we talk about some games that we've been playing. What do you think?
I think that's an excellent idea.
I feel like it's been a good month so far. I feel like there's been, a good amount of games being played. We've got a lot of games on this list that are not, the usual suspects.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, except for the first one.
Well, so the discussion of low-key games from the last episode's back talk got me to pull out A Gentle Rain and play it again. I have played it 3 or 4 times in the last 2 weeks. I really, really like that one. It probably is my go-to for just the most calm. Like, I don't really have to think hard about it, and I don't feel bad if I, quote-unquote, lose the game. But we learned some new games, too.
Mm-hmm.
Elliot and I sat down and learned how to play Hi-Fi. This is way overdue.
Yeah. Tell me about this game.
So, Hi-Fi is a game about mixing and remastering a recording. You are the producers of a record using tracks that may or may not be new, is the idea. It's a very Beatles-like band is coming back together after a long hiatus, and they've charged you to help put together their new/old album. It is amazingly thematic within that. So you're doing an action selection at the beginning of every turn by turning what looks like a record on a turntable. It's one of the typical action selection sort of things that you can move it 1 or 2 spaces just fine, and then you can spend resources to move it further than that. And then the tone arm, which would have the needle on a real record player, is pointing to whatever your action is. You could do that in any number of ways, which would be easier but way less thematic. So that's really cool. All of those actions let you pick up cards and then do something else. They're all different. There's 5 different actions. But for all of them, after you do the action, you're going to put 1 card down somewhere on the mixing board. We only played with 2 players, so I believe we had 4 tracks available to us. These represent 4 different songs on the album. And then you can get all kinds of bonuses for matching the intensity of the tracks that you put down your new card next to, or matching the featured instrument type, which is like voice, guitar, bass guitar, percussion. In addition to those kind of things with possible bonuses, you can also try to fulfill little secret goals you have that are specific patterns of cards. 2, 3, or 4 cards in a specific pattern. The whole idea of the whole thing is everybody is working together to make these tracks, which involves putting down cards, but also sometimes moving cards around within the 4 songs that you have. And the game ends when I think 2 tracks are full or something like that. So really interesting, one of those sort of collaborative but competitive games. We had a good time with it. It was right on the edge of the kind of difficulty level that our youngest is comfortable with, but the theme kept him engaged. But at the end, I was like, do you want to play it again? He was like, right now? I'm like, no, not right now. Another time. Yes, I would love to play it another time.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, so this is his heavy game right now.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I saw this originally at Gamma Expo 2024. That's the one I went to, I think. And it looked really, really cool then. And so when we had the opportunity at Unplugged to grab a copy of this for review, definitely jumped on that. And it's just,
it hasn't
we've been
been
backed
the right
up
time
in the queue and we're finally there, and I'm so glad for it. So
yeah.
Really, really excited to get some plays of Hi-Fi in.
I'm excited to play it some more.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of stuff we played more, we recently released our review of Unmatched Battle of Legends 3.
Yeah, Volume 3 is the end of the Battle of Legends series. It's not the end of Unmatched, but it's the end of this kind of Battle of Legends thing. At this point, there's 12 characters in the Battle of Legends, the greater Battle of Legends series.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to say that this is look, Battle of Legends Volume 1, like, that was the coming out party for Unmatched in general, so I feel like that has to take the top spot with these 3, but, like, I had a lot of fun with this set. I really did.
I really, really liked this set. Something we talked about in the review is that unlike some of the other Unmatched sets we've played, this one made us really eager to not only use these characters together, but to match them up with other characters in new ways, not all of which we've tried yet. But for example, we would really love to pair off Pandora against Achilles. So like two heroes of Greek myth. We'd like to try Loki, and the Loki in this is very much the Norse trickster legend, not the guy who shows up in Marvel movies.
Well, I mean, he's also a Norse trickster legend, but I mean, this is a far more serious take on Loki, the character, like closer to the actual mythology.
Yeah. And so figuring out what would be a really good matchup for that Loki. We actually... Later on, we tried that Loki versus Bruce Lee, and that became a really interesting matchup.
So fun. All right, so I did pull up, by the way, Battle Legends Volume 2, just to remind myself who was in there. I definitely like Volume 3 more than Volume 2.
Sure.
Bloody Mary was like, the 3 thing with her was cool, but I wasn't crazy about it. Sun Wukong, I just didn't really care for as a character. Yanenga and Achilles, I liked both of them very much. But I like everyone in Volume 3.
Yeah, I think part of it is that the characters in Battle of Legends Volume 3, all of them just feel a little bit more straightforward than some of the guys, not all, but some of the guys in Battle of Legends Volume 2.
I mean, I don't think Loki feels like a air quote straightforward character. I think he's very difficult to play correctly, and he is a little reliant on getting your trick cards out. Like, do you remember when I played as Loki and I just was not drawing tricks?
There was a game where you just didn't draw.
I got absolutely pasted, right? So I don't know how true that is. I definitely think Chupacabra, who's one of the characters in 3, is extremely straightforte. I think
it's much easier than Bloody Mary too, even though they have a lot of similarities.
Oh, yeah. I think Pandora is pretty cut and dry. I mean, she's got her Pandora's box, which are cards that you flip over at the beginning of the round, or her turn. But then there's no like super special things on her cards other than maybe referencing the miseries, which are the feathers,
the little cards,
the Pandora's box stuff. So it's not complicated like Loki. Loki is a much more complicated character.
Sure, I guess. Maybe it's just me personally. I don't feel like Loki is all that complicated. Like, he definitely gets a lot deeper strategically, but yeah, even Pandora and Loki both give you a lot of interesting decisions to make without needing to keep track of a bunch of extra stuff. I guess is really what I'm going at there.
The fourth character here who we haven't mentioned is Blackbeard, and Blackbeard is, I guess, maybe the most complicated because he's got doubloons and you can spend doubloons to do things, or there's things that force you to discard doubloons, but doubloons, give you perks if you have them. So he's probably a little bit more complicated. He might be my least favorite character in the set, but I do have a lot of fun kind of memories already with Volume 3. I also like that they return to a true two-sided board.
Yes.
I mean, we'll probably keep it on Santa's Workshop basically always because I love the way the conveyor belt and the catapult work.
Well, but so here's the thing is, in going back to a true two-sided board, you have two options for the board, is one of the things that makes Volume 3 a little bit better for beginners than, say, Volume 2. The characters are a little bit more challenging to get your head around in Volume 2, and the board that comes in Volume 2, you only have one option, and it's got special stuff built into it. In Volume 3, you have two options, and one of them is very basic, unmatched board. Some paths cross over each other, but that's literally you're looking at the board and saying, okay, is this adjacent to this? Yes or no?
The other board, I think it's Venice, reminds me of one of the boards from Cobble and Fog, the London board or whatever it is, because there's sections of the board where you're running on rooftops and there's sections of the board where you're running on streets and they don't really cross with each other.
Right.
So it has sort of different pathways that are woven between each other, at least in terms of adjacency. Yeah. There are some cases where if you have a ranged character, of which there is only one in the set, that will work in your favor.
Right. In the meantime, the Santa's Workshop is a lot of fun because, there is a conveyor belt, which is supposed to move at the end of every player's turn. At the end of the conveyor belt is basically a catapult, and you pick where your character is going to go in a fairly small area.
You get catapulted into the toy bin.
There's also one-way arrows, which I haven't seen since Jurassic Park.
Well, the interesting thing about the one-way arrows is both directions are adjacent to each other, but you can only travel in one direction.
You can only travel in one direction on them. Yeah. I think that was true in Jurassic Park as well. The raptors
I don't recall.
Yeah. So anyway, really, really have been liking Battle of Legends Volume 3. I think it has climbed fairly high in our recommendations. Cobble and Fog is still up there.
Yeah, but Codel and Fog is now out of print.
But that's out of print now, so Battle of Legends Volume 3 might be our top spot for people new to Unmatched.
I mean, I still think Volume 1. I just think the characters are simpler. If you've never played an Unmatched game before, I would say Battle of Legends Volume 1 is the place to go, unless you're like big Marvel fans and you can get a Marvel set. Like, there's so many ways to go about how you select which, Unmatched set to get. But
yeah, I don't think these other options are bad.
Right.
I just,
Right. So let's talk about some Fruition, shall we?
Yeah, so Fruition is still a little button-shy game that lives in my purse a lot of the time. We had a special date breakfast where it was you and me and our youngest son. We brought him out as a treat.
Mm-hmm.
I reminded him that you and I always play a game when we go out to date breakfast. And I asked him which one he wanted to play, and he wanted to play Fruition. And then did not get a single card.
Yeah, so you know that thing where you talk about, like, should you let your kids win? Yeah, the answer is no. I dominated.
Well, but also our youngest is 11 years old now.
Yeah, but
so
I dominated you too.
you dominated me too. That's true. I think I got one card and you got all the rest.
Yeah, like 6 and then food game or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it is a nice, quick, easy, small. I mean, every button shy game is small. That doesn't guarantee that it's quick and easy, though. A little party game that you can play at the table. So really nice one.
It's a good time waster kind of game. You know what else wound up being an excellent time waster kind of a game?
I think waster is a strong word.
Okay. Spending time doing something fun when you're unable to do much of anything else.
That's a great description.
Was Red Letter, Yellow Letter. This is a brand new party game. I think it's being published by 25th Century.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it was designed by Nathan Thornton, who designed Green Team Wins.
Yep. So we were driving up to Maine from Massachusetts. So it was like a 3-hour drive. And I had swung by the post office that morning and Red Letter, Yellow Letter was in there. So brought it back. And, we took a very quick look at it and we're like, I think we might be able to play this in the car.
It worked amazingly well in the car.
Yep.
So there are 3 categories of cards in the game. There are red letters, which is your word can't have this letter. There are yellow letters, which is your word must start with this letter. And there are things. And that's it. It is exactly what you would think. You have one of each card out, and everybody races to come up with the first thing they can that meets the letter restriction.
So obviously we had to modify this very slightly to play it in a car because, we can't have 3 things on the table that everybody can look at. And so the way we did this was I was driving, Nitro was in the passenger seat, and then the kids were in the back. First of all, when you open the box, it just so happens that the insert makes it so that there's like 3 deck areas in the box.
Yeah. Now, you can't actually store it in those 3 areas with each deck separate because the red letter deck and the yellow letter deck are quite small and the things deck is very large. But we split up the thing deck, stuck a bunch of them under the red letters and the yellow letters, and voila, I had a storage solution that was also sort of a ongoing display.
Mm-hmm. So we did a couple of things here. So the goal of the game is to get, I think, 4 of each of the 3 different kinds of cards. So when you get the word, 3 of each. So when you get the first word, you get to pick, do I want to keep a red letter card, the yellow letter card, or the thing card? And you need to get 3 of each in order to win. We did that part, and that was fine. We also made a rule that whoever won the last one could not participate in the next round of guessing. And we did this just to kind of balance it out a little bit so there wasn't one person who was just dominating the entire game.
And especially because in the car, there were a few more handicapping issues than there might otherwise be. Not everybody could see the letters, etc. This became a game that all of us could play, including you as the driver.
Mm-hmm.
And I held the box and did sort of the bookkeeping. So when someone won a card, I would pull it out and hand it to them after they told me which one they wanted. But I wouldn't be looking at what gets revealed until I read it out to everybody. And then we would all be able to guess at the same time.
So I got within 1 card of winning, but then Claire pulled it out.
Claire pulled it off. It was a ton of fun. I definitely think we will play this again when we have a few minutes after dinner or something we want to play together.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I think I might bring this on our next road trip too.
Yeah.
It was a really nice, half an hour of playing together in the car instead of everybody staring at a screen and me staring out the window because I can't look at much when I'm in the car.
Yep. I mean, it worked incredibly well. So that's Red Letter, Yellow Letter from 25th Century Games.
Expect a more thorough review on that at some point.
In a bit.
But it's great, and
Yep.
you should try it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, next on the list is Backstories Emerald Wedding Anniversary. So back at PAX Unplugged last year, we got a copy of Backstories Below the Ice, Under the Ice, something like that. And our writer Jeremy...
Alone Under the Ice.
Alone Under the... Sure. Our writer Jeremy reviewed that one and released that written review either at the very beginning of this year or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the timing is on that, so I apologize if I got it all wrong. But this game is really cool. So the Backstory series it's kind of a narrative point-and-click adventure-y kind of game. It's a choose-your-own-adventure would be a better way to put it. It's a giant deck of cards, and the game starts off by giving you a few cards that have like slots on them. We have pictures of Alone Under the Ice. You can see these cards, but they're cards with slots, and it'll be like watch, and the slot in the card will be near the top, and then another one that says like use, and it'll have a slot in the middle, and then you'll have another card that, well, I mean, I'll just say it, is like use x-ray glasses. And you start to go through this story, and it'll say, okay, pull out these 5 cards, that'll create a panorama. And then you have these cards with the slots on them, and you can use those abilities on some of the cards in the panorama. And the way that you use them is you slide the thing you want to use behind the card you want to check out, and then you flip it over, and it'll have some kind of narrative and some instructions or something like that.
The story got really interesting.
Yes, it did.
As with Alone Under the Ice, we definitely discovered that some choices we made that we thought were going to be really good choices, they didn't have the effect we hoped.
Let's say non-optimal.
Yeah, non-optimal. But one of the coolest things about these games, because it does work a lot like a choose-your-own-adventure kind of book, once we had played all the way through the game, we reset it, and a couple of days later, we played it again. The first time we played the Emerald Wedding Anniversary, we just played with our teenage son, Asher. But then the second time, we asked our other 2 kids to play with us, and they were both a little reluctant, and I was like, look, give it a shot. We'll start the story, and if you think it's boring, you don't want to do it, you can leave. Guess what?
Oh, everybody
They got sucked in.
Absolutely. It was great.
And we ended up with a different ending. We took a somewhat different path the second time around with them. I then played it a third time on my own to discover what I could have done to get a different result.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I discovered is that some choices that feel very different on the front end still direct you into the same path later on. That was really interesting. They're really well constructed. The stories stay interesting. It's like a grown-up choose-your-own-adventure book.
Yeah, I think I have 2 more things I want to say about this. So number one of the new things that they do in Emerald Wedding Anniversary that they didn't do in Alone Under the Ice is that there are some transparent cards which you can put over your representative character card, which you can slide like status effects underneath as things happen in the story. But there's also these clear cards that you can put over. So I mentioned the x-ray glasses at the very beginning. There's a clear card, and the only thing on it is glasses.
Yeah.
And so you put them on top of your character, and it looks like your character is wearing glasses.
I mean, these are kind of gimmicky,
but they look great. And there's other stuff that happens in the story that impacts your character and makes your character look different. And there are transparent cards for it, and it looks fantastic.
Yeah, it really adds to, I guess I would say, the immersiveness of the story, the reminding you what's really going on here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was really cool.
The other thing I would say about this, and I don't recall it being quite as noticeable in Alone Under the Ice, there is language in this. I'm talking like F-bomb language in this. So if that is something your family is sensitive to, I just recommend that you have an adult do the reading out loud part.
Yeah.
Just a FYI, a little content warning there.
I mean, you're a secret agent, and there's definitely some violence.
Yeah, that's true.
But that is another thing, which I think was probably true in Alone Under the Ice, but is definitely true in the Emerald Wedding Anniversary. You can try to avoid violence, but sometimes violence will come and find you.
Mm-hmm.
Or, in this one, you definitely can lean into just being horribly violent if you want to be. And sometimes the game turns around and kind of looks at you like, is that really what you want to do here?
Bro, do you really need to shoot a dead body? Like, what's wrong with you?
You hit the wall and it does nothing. Maybe rethink your life choices.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so we really, really enjoyed this. We'll have a review out for this eventually, but we're planning on it being a snap review, so that requires video and getting back into that whole thing. My hope is in the next month or so.
Just keep your eyes peeled for Backstory's Emerald Wedding Anniversary.
So what else? A friend of ours is moving away.
He has moved away.
Gaming friend. Well, yes, now he has
He's
moved
gone.
away.
So we played a couple of classics. We let him pick whatever he wanted, and he picked Tesla vs. Edison War of Currents. Man, I love this game so much. It was like a warm blanket when we sat down to play. I forgot how to play it, but as we got, it didn't take long for me to remember as we went through the rules, and it
most of it anyway.
Just felt great. I loved it.
Yeah, Tesla versus Edison is one of those that's right on the edge of what I'm comfortable with, difficulty-wise. There's just a lot of parts. Anytime that you're like, yes, this game will take an hour to 90 minutes, and there are 6 turns. And I was like, wait a minute. That's not to say that I don't enjoy it. I do, but it can be a lot sometimes. Feels weird because the game still feels kind of new to us, because I think I've only played it 2 or 3 times total, but we've had that game for 9 years now.
It's crazy. I love it. We also played that night Juicy Fruits, which is a game that we've had for not quite as long.
Less long.
Less long. It sounds weird to say, but less long. This is a really neat... If you've never seen Juicy Fruits, first of all, it has chunky wooden fruit, which is great. This is a sliding puzzle game, I guess? I don't even know how else to describe it.
Yeah, you are sliding these fruit collection tiles around in your little island board, and one of the things you can do with the fruit you buy is to open up spaces on the edges of your board so that you can slide further and collect more fruit. But the other thing you can spend your fruit on is little shops and things which give you points, but also take up room on your island. So it's this sort of back and forth of maximizing your fruit intake while also trying to manage this puzzle of how much open space do I want versus how quickly do I want to grab some of these points so that other people can't grab them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You pretty much described it.
Yep.
Juicy Fruits is a really interesting tension. It doesn't feel complicated. It's just... it's a simple game, right? But it's just a lot of decision making and trying to balance it. This is the kind of game where, you could play through the whole thing and feel pretty good about yourself. And then at the end, you find out you have a third of the points as everybody else.
Yeah.
So, as long as you're enjoying the journey and not the destination, I think you'll have a good time with Juicy Fruits.
That's a good description of how my game of Juicy Fruits went. I've been on a little bit of a nostalgia kick lately, so I also pulled out Dinosaur Tea Party to play with our kids.
Okay, so in truth, we have been tossing around whether or not we want to keep Dinosaur Tea Party or not. Yeah. And I know that you got a chance to pull it out and play it. I think I was working or something. I don't even know. And I see that it's back on the shelf.
Yes, one kid was very pleased at the end of the game. One kid was like, okay, yeah, this game is fine. And a third kid was, this is why I don't like this game.
Okay.
So, honestly, 2 out of 3 is fine.
Yeah, Meatloaf says that works.
It had been so long since we had played this game.
Uh-huh.
I think the last time we played it, it was in my recorded games, but it was either 2019 or 2020. Just a huge difference in our kids' ability from the last time we played it.
Of course. Of course. That's a huge thing about family gaming in general, and that's one of the reasons against purging games, actually.
Yeah. So it was fun to get into again. I tried to get into the spirit of being a little bit silly and being a proper dinosaur.
A proper dinosaur.
None of the kids were having that.
They were just like, action.
They were just like, Asher, are you in an orange room? And he'd be like, yes, I am.
Okay.
Period.
All right.
Like, okay. Overall, I think we enjoyed it enough to keep it around. I still really like this over Guess Who.
Sure.
It's better in a lot of ways. The biggest one for me is that you can play with more than 2 people, which with a bigger family is important. Speaking of flashing back to earlier games of yesteryear, our kids pulled out Prisma Arena the last couple of days to work back through.
This was not in any way spurred on by you?
Nope, not in any way.
Wow, that's really interesting.
So I wanted to mention it on the podcast that this is a game that they were looking at and they're like, man, remember when we used to play that all the time? And I was like, yes, it's because it was COVID and you went through a kick of playing it all the time because you were home all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But our 2 oldest pulled it out, played a game with each other, and it was one of those, same as we described with Tesla versus Edison, like taking a few minutes to be like, oh, right, this is how this works.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it reminded them why they loved it so much back then.
Helps that it's a great game.
It is a great game.
All right. You mentioned before that we took our youngest out on our breakfast date. That was because our favorite family restaurant that you and I go to on our breakfast dates, the owners had the audacity to go on vacation and close the restaurant. Our place is open again, so we went on our date and we played some more obelisks.
Yeah, man, this is such a great choice for a quick, compact game.
I have to say, every time every time we have taken this game to a place like a restaurant or whatever and played it, somebody comments on the cards.
It is a gorgeous game.
Yeah, they're like these shiny, like iridescent cards in this game. Like, it's very simple. There are, 8 cards that you put in a ring. Does that sound right? 8 cards?
Yes,
like
8.
And
that makes your play space.
Yeah, and it's 4-sided dice that are shaped like little obelisks, and that's it.
And the little red tokens that you place to block stuff off, and that's it.
Yep, that look like lozenges. I mean,
yeah.
But it looks beautiful. It's very simple to play. It's a really good 2-player, like, date game. Small, compact, very quick.
Yeah, it's a nice abstract game with dice.
Mm-hmm.
It is definitely the prettiest small box game we have.
I absolutely agree.
All right, just one more. Speaking of pretty games, we also pulled out Quarto. Again, our teenage son pulled this out to have a quick game to play with a friend after D&D before the friend had to go home. And then it has stayed on the table for the next 2 days. And Claire, our teenage daughter, keeps being like, hey, Mom, play Quarto with me. Hey, Asher, play Quarto with me. Like, almost everybody. And it reminds me how much of a gamer she really still is. It's just that a lot of the times the kind of games that we're pushing to play and pushing to review are not her style. Quarto fits beautifully for her. It's gorgeous, it's fast, and frankly, I think she really likes that it's only 2 players.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's it. So that's what we've been playing over the last 2 weeks. Feels nice, like...
healthy. It's a nice, healthy amount of games.
It's less of the feast and famine that we've been experiencing over the last couple of months. More just sort of a steady beat of a couple a week.
Mm-hmm. All right, why don't we go to the Family Gamers community, Anitra, and welcome some new community members? What do you think of that?
That sounds like a great idea.
All right, so I will get us started. Is that okay?
Sure.
All right, and I will say welcome to Dana.
Welcome to Jeff.
Welcome to Eric.
Welcome to Karat.
Welcome to Saniko.
And Shubhi.
Welcome to Jason.
And Joe.
And Sean.
And Roy.
We are very glad that you have joined Family Gamers community. Jeff has already commented and thanked us for having him. Of course, Jeff, we are more than happy to have you in the community. I hope you're also listening to the podcast so you can hear us say your name out loud. If you have not gone over there and liked the post or commented on the post or really any of those other things that you could be doing, please head on over, say hello, and let's get talking about some games that we're playing, huh?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Speaking of talking about games that we're playing, we also have some back talk. Let's cover some back talk before we head over to our break.
So 2 weeks ago on the podcast, we asked about low-key games. So games that you play when you just want to relax. I already mentioned that asking this question prompted me to play more A Gentle Rain, and I mentioned that on the Discord. Kristen says, I won't be surprised, and she's right, I'm not surprised, but it's A Gentle Rain for her as well. But other highlights are Lucky Numbers, Cribbage, and A Nice Cuppa.
I remember Nice Cuppa. That came out at a very good time for us.
Those are all good choices. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Over on the Facebook, you commented first and said that yours was either Grove or A Gentle Rain. Mm-hmm. That sort of gentle tile-laying puzzle with no bad placements is just right when you need to not think too hard. Nick Martinelli comments and says that he and his wife actually play it cooperatively just to do something together.
He stuck some slang in there.
We're not talking about that Gen D slang.
I don't know how to do that slang.
That guy's like older than me.
I know, right?
I'm not doing that.
Adrian on the Discord says, we started playing Rummy Cube during the pandemic. I enjoy the soothing sounds of the tiles. There was a period when my sister could stop by for a brief visit and we'd just pull the game out, play a round of it, and catch up on things, and then she'd be on her way.
See, I
love that. I love that.
Like the old classics like that, or anything that, 2 people have played so much. Like, that's why mine is Jekyll vs. Hyde, because we've played it so much that, we can just kind of talk over the game.
We don't have to think about how to set it up and what the rules are, and even the special cases. Be like, no, we know what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, not to bury the lead too much, but like, this is kind of the topic of the second half of the show, right? Like,
kinda, yeah.
So, yeah, that's a great one. Thank you for that. Nick lists a couple of others that he likes. A Nice Cuppa. He also mentions Flip City, Orchard, which is related to Grove, and even Sagrada that he likes to play solo. Thought that was
Ooh.
pretty interesting.
Well, I could see Sagrada Solo would be the kind of puzzle that really kind of gets your juices flowing, but without feeling too hectic.
Sure.
I guess.
Sure.
On the Discord, SMS says that Parks from Keymaster is one of my favorite peaceful games. I usually just zone out and stare at the card art.
Well, it is gorgeous. I mean, those I would love to have those as like posters. The problem is there's like 59 of them or whatever. Like, I don't have that much room in my house.
They changed up some of it because it's no longer the 59 parks. It's now like the 61 parks or something like that. I don't know.
All right, back on Facebook, Colleen Slaby says, very recently we have learned to play Cities by Games, and it fills our bucket for some light strategy to create your own 3x3 city grid. It doesn't burn our brains with decision-making because your choices for drafting city tiles and projects are limited to one choice per category. This game made us think of another city-building game with love called Quadropolis, but that game is a little more intricate in how you place and activate tiles, so Cities fills the bucket for city building when you don't want to plan too hard. Love it.
All right. Jeremy on the Discord says, I think one of our favorite low-key games is Chronology, with a close second of Farkle. I know technically neither of those are board games, but they're easy two-player games that are fun and typically don't require a lot of focus.
Yeah, I mean, we say board games, but really we pretty much mean tabletop games, so don't worry about it, Jeremy. You're good.
Yeah.
Unlike the Joyful Jedi.
Oh my goodness. So he decided to take our question in a different direction. Instead of talking about low-key games, like easy or gentle or relaxing, he answered about games that have Loki, the character, the Norse god, including Marvel Champions, Marvel Dagger, Yggdrasil Chronicles. Man, I cannot say that game. Marvel Legendary, 5-Minute Marvel, Champions of Midgard, Mythic Battles Ragnarok, and Lords of Ragnarok. There are also multiple ways to play as him in Dice Throne, Marvel Villainous, Unmatched, Divinus, and some games you can go either hero or villain with him, like Marvel United and Marvel Zombies, and the Loki strategy in Blood Rage. And you can even figure out how he did it in Clue Jr. Marvel Avengers, Loki's Big Trick.
You're fired. I didn't even know what else to say. I mean, I appreciate the thoroughness of your response. I feel like there must have been a Google search or a Board Game Geek search in there somewhere. But man, I'm telling you, if you ripped all that off, I am impressed.
How dare you? And also applause, sir.
Right. Well done.
All right, so let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about connecting through gaming.
All right, that sounds good. We'll be right back.
And we're back.
Yeah, so this week we have a topic which is basically about connecting through gaming. And like you mentioned at the top, Kendra McDonald commented on our episode 403 podcast post. And she said, this podcast was just what I needed as a mom. I need to listen again. I need to realize my kiddo is growing up. But also now I have plans for games to get the neighborhood boys excited about non-screen gaming over here.
Yeah, and while I think that's great, I pushed back a little bit on Kendra that screens or no screens should not be the goal. Connection should be the goal.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that in our culture, our kids are more prone to go after screen and get lost in screens. And there's certainly a lot of dialogue about screens and social media and all of this stuff. And so there certainly is a healthy amount of warranted concern about the amount of screen-related consumption that our kids have.
Yes, I agree.
Right. So we don't want to say that that's not something that we are concerned about or whatever, but the thing that we're specifically talking about here is connection. And especially when you find the right local multiplayer games, it doesn't really matter quite as much if it's a board game or it's some kind of a video game.
Yeah, this is one of those things where board games are great, but as we said last time, meet your kids where they're at, and sometimes going for a video game is just a much easier push than trying to get into more board games.
I mean, I guess I would put it like this. Like, this is an easy way to kind of set the picture for what we're essentially saying, at least with this. And this isn't the point of the whole show, but this is kind of where we're opening this whole conversation about connecting through gaming. Would you rather connect with your child over a video game or have no connection with your child at all?
Or connect with them over a video game or force them into doing something they don't really want to do, and it might work out for a connection, or it might just lead to, well, now we're done with that, and I can check it off the list, and mom and dad won't ask me to do it again for a while.
Yeah, so we're immediately going to, I was going to string it out a little bit more, but if we want to immediately jump there, I think that's fair. So here's what's happening. There is this question, and we talk about this a lot on the show, where parents will ask, how do I get my kids to like board games? And there's two reasons why they want their kids to like board games. One of them is they like board games and they want their kids to like what they like. And that's fine. Like, I get it. I want my kids to like board games too. But the other reason is, hey, I'm trying to find a way to connect with my kid. I don't want them on screens all the time. I want them to play something on the table instead. I would like my kid to like board games. The problem with that statement is that the goal of the parents is connection, right?
Yeah.
You agree with that? The goal of the parent is connection. The result of forcing your kid to the table is not a connection.
Usually. I mean...
Well, in a situation where the parents are saying, how do I get my kids to like this? Right. The result of getting that kid to the table to play that board game is not a connection. The result of that is generally resentment, at least towards the board game, possibly also towards the parents.
Yeah.
So the reality around that is, regardless of what that desire is, it does more harm than good.
Yeah. So since our goal here is connection, doing this through any kind of game, any kind of recreational activity really, means understanding the other people enough to play or do something that they like. I am not saying sit down and play Grand Theft Auto with your kids.
Please don't.
Understand what I am not saying.
I would ask you not to do that.
However, we talk about doing this with board games all the time, and we were thinking maybe we would talk a little bit about non-board game ways to do that. And video games are a big one. They're not the only one. I mean, you and I connect through making a podcast every other week.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, again, the goal here is around connections and what it takes to make those connections with your kids or with the kids in your lives. So we end the show every week with play games with your kids. We don't say play board games with your kids. We don't say play dice games with your kids. We don't say play D&D with your children. We say play games with your kids. Why? Because games are about fun.
Yeah.
And you want your kids to have fun with you, or at least to think about fun things when they think about spending time with you, so that maybe they might actually want to spend more time with you. Like,
wow.
That's the goal.
Fancy that. So do you want to talk about some of the video games that we recommend from experience? Do you want to talk about some of the other things we have tried
well,
to connect with our
before
children?
I even talk about specific video games, because I think we are going to list a couple of titles here. One of them was actually brought up in the Family Gamers community, and I think it's a good option, not a great option. But when we talk about this idea of play games with your kids, look, if you are hoping to get your kids to play board game, a very easy strategy around this still involves meeting your kids where they are. It might just mean saying, basically bartering, being like, hey, you know what? I want to hang out with you. What are you playing these days? Are you playing Mario Kart? Cool, let's play Mario Kart. Are you playing Super Smash Brothers? Cool, let's play some of that. You're going to whoop me. It's going to be fine. We'll all laugh together. But then, in the next 2 days, I'd like you to play a board game with me, right? And basically barter that out. And that way, when they come to the table, you have an agreement. And you know what? You get half an hour into the game and they're just hating it. You can let go. That's something we talked about last week, right? You can just say, you know what, this isn't working. I'm not trying to force the issue with you right now. I'm just trying to find something that works for both of us. Let's move on with our lives. That level of setting expectations and creating some kind of a bartering arrangement or some kind of a deal where it's they're not beholden to you because of the fact that they're always going to lose the power struggle with their parents. Right? You're meeting them where they are. You're approaching them kind of as an equal and saying, hey, I get that this is your thing. And it's not my thing, but I want to kind of understand your thing so that you can kind of understand my thing. And then you just work together on that.
Yeah. To be fair, this can come up the other direction in board games as well. If you've been listening to the podcast for any real length of time, I'm pretty clear about the fact that I don't like terribly heavy games. I definitely don't like complicated games. And our older son, Asher, loves that. He doesn't always have time for them these days, but he loves that kind of game. Sometimes for me, connecting with him means, yes, I will play that kind of game with you that I just don't care for. We're going to review Shovel Knight, Dungeon Duels, I think is the name of it, in a couple of weeks. And I never had any interest in playing that board game.
You're a great sport, though.
I don't love the video game that it's based on. I don't love games that are full of minis. The rule book is large. It's like 50 pages. There was nothing about this game that interested me as our boy's mother, but they both were really into it. And so I was like, all right, teach me the game. I will sit down and play the game with you. And honestly, we had a great time.
Mm-hmm.
We had a great time learning it and playing it together. It's still not in my top 10 choices. But now that I have played it with them and seen the way that both of them open up and really get excited about that kind of game, I'm more willing to play it with them too, because I see that it's a good way to make those connections.
Well, and because they play Shovel Knight, the video game, you can now watch them play on occasion and be like, I remember that from the board game, and you've now forged a connection, right? Even if the connection is in the callback to the previous experience, you now have that thing that you've done.
So when we talk about connecting over games, we're talking about doing something where you are working together or maybe lightly competing. We're not talking about the heads down individual game experience of some of our roll and writes and, other multiplayer solo games like that. We're not talking about your single player video game or things like that. We're talking about things that do bring you together.
So I would actually make the case here that one of the reasons why I don't think it's really that important that we talk about some titles, although, again, we will mention some titles, especially of some video games, because we don't talk about those all that much, is because it's really not so much about the game as it is about the shared social experience while playing whatever the game happens to be.
Yeah, but I think a big part of that, most of the time, is going to be choosing games or paths through games that facilitate that shared common experience.
Yes, I think that's true as well.
Like, I know our kids often like watching other people play video games, but I'm sorry, that's not a great way to build that commonality together.
So I'll give you an example of something in which I'm doing some of this with our youngest. We're playing through the Master Chief Collection, which is the first,
a bunch of the Halo games.
First 6 Halo games together. I actually don't find this to be a particularly good bonding kind of an experience because we're just playing the game. But once in a while, something will happen that we can days later be like, oh man, do you remember when that elite did that funny thing or blah, blah, blah? And it's hilarious. And those are the moments of shared experience, but you can't cherry pick those experiences and move on with your life. You have to put in the work to have those things happen to you, right? Sometimes these opportunities to play games together don't feel like bonding to you, but they mean the world to them.
Sure.
And then you get these funny experiences or whatever. Happen in between.
I mean, I think this is true of things beyond video games, as we mentioned.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it could be going on hikes. You could start a podcast with your children if you have a lot of patience.
So I thought about mentioning hikes, but I figured I would also mention I brought our boys to the movies tonight.
Sort of. You took them to the movies. You took them to a special movie.
I brought them to the theater to see on the big screen K-pop Demon Hunters Sing-Along. And frankly, we will be talking about this for weeks because the whole idea of taking a movie that we had already seen, I had seen twice, they had seen 3 or 4 times on Netflix, and then going to a theater and sharing that experience all over again with, 30 other people made it more communal, singing along, clapping, making comments at the screen, listening to what other people were commenting at the screen. I was a little skeptical, but I wanted to do something to kind of treat them. And now I know that for us, it was a great bonding experience. It's something we're going to keep looking back on over and over again.
I mean, I'm sure there are things that happened while you were in the theater that were completely unexpected.
Yes, definitely.
But without putting in the work to go through the experience of something that they were interested in, you would have never had those shared experiences and that shared connection.
Yes.
And so this is a perfect example of what I said before when I said, look, if you barter those experiences with your kids, you're basically gaining social capital that I'm not saying you're going to turn around and leverage this against your children. Like, I'm not trying to manipulate your kids or encourage you to manipulate your kids. But what I'm saying here is when that question is asked, when that how do I get my kids to like board games question is asked, very often the interactions around that are incredibly one-sided. It's this presupposition that parents are going to exert their will and their children, who are fully fledged human beings, are eventually going to relent if you press the right combination of buttons. The point that we're making here is, at least for this part, is to say it is in fact a two-way street, and you need to invest on their side if you expect them to invest on your side. Even if you're in a family where there's this expectation that you obey mom and dad, there's still people and they still have their preferences, and those are still things that in order to forge these connections, you're going to have to work through and you're going to have to respect those.
Right. Well, and I think one of the things you're getting at there is we definitely teach obedience in our family. Like, we expect our kids to obey us. Mm-hmm. But we can teach and expect obedience, but we can't force them to enjoy something.
Right.
Right.
But I guess what I'm saying is, but so many times these conversations are wrapped around essentially that thing.
Right. So, but I'm trying to step back a little bit and say, realize that you can't force your kids to like what you like. You can force them to try it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I don't think it's the best option to force your kids to try something.
I don't think it's the best option to force them.
I think that making a deal where they are willing to try something somewhat on their own terms, even if those are terms that you've crafted and presented to them.
But my point here is that even if you're doing that sometimes where you're trying to bring them into the things you enjoy, mm-hmm. as a parent, you should definitely step out and bring yourself to the things that they enjoy.
Yes.
And what you were saying is it's a two-way street. And what I'm saying is, frankly, it doesn't matter what you're doing together with your kid to build connection. What matters is that it's way more important for you as the adult to enter their world rather than always trying to force them to come into yours.
Yes, I think that's extremely well put. I mean, I would double down on that and even say that as the adult, it's your responsibility to be the bigger person.
Yeah.
Right. And to do those things first and recognize that, especially when you're talking about your children, because sometimes we have people that are listening that, you know, it's nieces or nephews or just friends with kids or whatever. There is a power dynamic at play. There is always a power dynamic at play. Mm-hmm. And you are the one with the power, parents. So be a benevolent dictator, please. Go to them, do their thing. And look, you might shockingly discover that that thing that you always thought was kind of silly and not worth your time is actually pretty fun. It happens.
Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm. I'm going to use this as a turning point to specifically recommend some video games, because two of these here, I think about when I first saw them, I'm like, that just looks dumb. I'm not interested. And then I tried them and I'm like, oh, this is actually remarkably fun with my children. Mm-hmm. There are lots of multiplayer video games out there that are really well designed for a bunch of people sitting around on a couch, all staring at the same screen and playing together. Mm-hmm. Of all of these kinds of games, the ones that go over best with teenage boys are free-for-all games where you're all fighting each other. It is what it is.
Now, it's not a guarantee that this is what your kids are playing, but, you know, in our experience with the legions of boys that have come into our home,
yeah,
these are the ones that are the most successful.
Well, and I remember my college days of hanging out with groups of teenage boys.
Like
saying.
Me?
Just saying. So an obvious one for us is Super Smash Brothers. Mm-hmm. Any variation of that on whatever Nintendo system you have. But there are also some great games in that vein that are even sillier that our kids have really gravitated towards. So one is called Ultimate Chicken Horse.
So dumb.
You may remember me mentioning this after PAX East. Ultimate Chicken Horse, in addition to being a free-for-all beat-em-up kind of game, you're also like putting obstacles in there and props and all kinds of stuff that get chosen every round. So it just gets more and more ridiculous as time goes on. Guys love this. Kids love this. There's also gang beasts, which is not what it sounds like. In gang beasts, everyone controls a character and you basically can move around and you can hit things and people and you can grab onto things. The characters are all very cute. They wear costumes that are like cats and dogs and things like that. And the levels are all really ridiculous, like a boat and you're going to try to push each other off into the water and sharks are going to eat you. So that's one whole category. Kill each other in the most cartoony ways possible.
There's a very similar kind of offshoot to this, which is games where you have objectives, but those objectives are incredibly silly. And there's some more structured ones like Overcooked, or what's Moving Out, I think is the moving one.
Yep.
But there's less structured ones like Totally Reliable Delivery Service.
Totally Reliable Delivery Service is a fairly open world game where you can just go around and explore and try different vehicles and whatever, or you can choose to start a delivery mission where you pick up a package and you are told you have to deliver it to a specific place. You have a whole selection of vehicles available to you, everything from cars to trucks to helicopters to rocket sleds to a dumpster that you can push down a hill. It gets really ridiculous. One of the things that's even more ridiculous about this game is for your character, you control their two hands separately. The controls are kind of wonky along with everything else.
That's actually also true about Gang Beasts.
That is also true of Gang Beasts, yes. And that's part of what makes it fun, is you've got a little bit more granular control, but also it becomes really ridiculous.
So these are the kind of games that have really easy kind of drop in, pick up, and play mechanics to them, which is very similar to what you might expect in a lot of party-style tabletop games like Apples to Apples or even a Green Team Wins or something like that. Those are the commonalities between these types of games. It's kind of a low commitment, low pressure kind of a way to just have, in the case of these video games, very silly fun.
Very silly.
But there's also some other stuff. So I would expect that most of the people listening to this have heard of Minecraft.
Yes.
Minecraft is a great example of a social experience. In most kids that I talk to play in what's called creative mode, which means they're basically building whatever they want to. Sometimes they build together and sometimes they kind of are building on the same map but in different places, and then after a while they show each other what they've built.
It kind of feels like younger kids playing with Lego together.
Yeah, kind of.
Like sometimes they're building together and sometimes they're not. And it's just, look at this cool thing I made. Look at this cool thing that I made.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Except you can't step on them.
Yes.
Which is awesome.
As our kids get older, they do get a little bit more into the non-creative mode of Minecraft. I don't know what that's called anymore.
Survival mode,
Survival,
maybe?
yeah.
That sounds right.
Apparently, that's a little bit more fun to play with multiple people. So it's like, okay, we built this house, and now we need to go in at nighttime so the zombies don't get us. Okay, now we go out again and see what we can mine and build. And it gives a little bit more of a cycle because you have to either fight the zombies at night or be enclosed so they can't get to you. Even then, it's still basically building.
And a lot of kids are playing these kinds of games where they're really drop-in, free-form, just ways to spend time in like a low-pressure environment, right? I mean, there is a lot of pressure and stuff going on in the world, and these are ways for kids to escape.
I will mention that Overcooked is not a low-pressure environment.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. But, okay, so if we're going to talk about Overcooked, we should talk about some other stuff. So,
yes.
One of the games that was brought up in the Family Gamers community, which is a video game that we should talk about, is a game called It Takes Two. So, there's a company called Hazelight Studios, and everything that Hazelight makes, most of them are published by EA, the company EA. Everything that Hazelight makes are these two-player, I think you can also play them as one player, but they're one or two-player like cooperative games where the different players play as different characters who are actually working together to get through a plot. It Takes Two is a story about two parents of a daughter who are basically about to get divorced. I mean, I'm saying this because I think this is content that is potentially sensitive to certain families, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think it's that much of a surprise to say that something happens to the two of them. They are forced to work together over the course of the game, and through that, they kind of work out their problems, right? That's the undercurrent of this game, okay?
Yeah, there's a fair bit of language and innuendo in this one, in addition to the fact that it's very obviously about parents who are about to get divorced, trying to get along even though they don't really want to. So big content warning there. However, we had a great time playing it together, and I would be okay with playing it with one of our kids.
With a teenager. So it's not super bad language, I should say that, but there's a little bit of language in it. I think this is a game that we could play with our teenagers without any real concerns at all. I'm not entirely sure about the 11-year-old, but that's about where we are with this game.
Yeah.
The earlier games from Hazelight, I probably would not want to play with kids. The first one, I don't remember what it's called, but it's about breaking out of prison. Would not play that one. They did release a game in the last year called Split Fiction, which is a very interesting game. This is a game about two friends who are authors. One of them is a sci-fi author and the other one is a fantasy author.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going back and forth and basically going through the author's books. So it's half sci-fi, half fantasy, and it sounds like it's a ton of fun. And I've talked to some people who've played it and they've really enjoyed that game as well.
Sure.
So those kinds of games are a really interesting. So these are 3D puzzle platformers. That would be the kind of game, the genre of game that this is. They can get a little bit tough if you're not an experienced gamer, but they absolutely require you to work together. And so that's a really great. I mean, we connected through this game. I don't know that you and I connected in any particularly novel ways, right? Because we'd been married for 15 years when we started playing it. But it is a good opportunity to have those kinds of moments together. And then if you play It Takes Two with one of your kids, you can talk about the Book of Love if you want to, which is this dumb thing that's in the game. And it's not even all that important, except that it is a shared experience.
I don't know, man. He's the real villain of that game.
You think he's the villain in that game?
Yes.
I think he's a doofus in that game. I don't know about villain, but...
There are also straight up multiplayer puzzle games. One that keeps coming out in our family is called Death Squared. There's not a whole lot I can say about this, except it's literally you're trying to move pieces around on a platform and none of them can fall off. With more than one player, everybody controls one specific piece, and when you go over certain triggers, other things will happen. It's the kind of puzzle game where they start easy and get hard.
This is, it's essentially an abstract strategy game.
Yeah.
Right. Games like this are really fun as well. There are also games like Jackbox, which is a really interesting game that you play on a computer or on a console, but it'll provide you with a code that you can usually use an iPad or a tablet or a phone or something and actually connect to the game. And so there are open questions to everybody who's playing, and you kind of answer those questions on your phone, and then there's some interaction that way.
Yeah.
As well.
I cannot wholeheartedly recommend Jackbox because we have teenage boys, and I've seen where their brains go when they are given open-ended questions and they're spurring each other on. However, Jackbox does have the advantage of being that same kind of, it's really easy to drop in and drop out. It can accommodate any number of players. And frankly, if you have kids in your life who are always glued to a phone or an iPad or another device like that, this is a really low pressure way to get them involved in playing a game together because they can still use their device to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have to mention Rock Band.
Yeah, man. We've been talking about it off and on for the last year. We finally got the whole kit all set up and good to go. And I tell you what, every time our kids have friends over, they end up playing Rock Band.
Yeah.
That game will live on forever.
There's something about it. It simulates that experience of making music together, but removes a lot of the barriers from people who aren't good musicians, I think, is what it is. So
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Highly recommend Rock Band or any of its adjacent games, Guitar Hero, any of them.
Sure.
Any of the ones that are truly multiplayer. They work really well together, and everybody starts singing and rocking out, and it's like karaoke on steroids.
So, I hope that the general thrust of this topic has really come through. I wouldn't consider us to be video game experts in any particular way.
Yeah, definitely not.
Certainly compared to how much, we talk about board games and stuff like that. But the point that we're trying to really drive to here is, number one, there is no particular type of connection that you can be making with your children over board games that you can't also make with them over other forms of media consumption or other kinds of activities that you can do. It's just for a lot of us, because board games are our topic of primary interest, that's immediately where our brains go when we're trying to forge connections with our kids. And so the real goal of this podcast is to encourage you to not just think about the way that you have imagined that you would spend time with your kids and forge connections with them, but also to consider the types of things that they already enjoy so that we can encourage you to step into their world and forge connections on their grounds. Because in a lot of ways, especially if you don't know if your kids are going to like the things that you want them to like, it might be way more effective to do it on their terms.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That was a lot.
Yeah, I guess so. Look, again, we're not the video game experts, and this isn't necessarily a video game apologist episode, but...
It kind of is, though.
I mean, a little. But a lot of you play video games, too. Obviously, some people in the community are mentioning video games that they play, and so that's going to be our Backtalk question this week. What video games are you playing with your kids or with other people locally? I don't want to talk about Call of Duty that you play online with whatever. Like, those things are fine, and I'm not trying to take away from them. But especially since we're coming from a board game-centric world and we're stepping into the video game space, what I really want to hear about is games that you're playing with local co-op.
Or local multiplayer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So, Anitra, where can people go to answer our Backtalk questions?
You can go to the Family Tabletop community on Discord. That's where we and a number of other family board game content creators get together and talk about some of this stuff. The easiest way to get an invite to that is go to thefamilygamers.com/Discord. We will also be posting this Backtalk question in our Facebook community, as we already mentioned. You can get there on Facebook by searching Family Gamers Community or go to thefamilygamers.com/community.
Of course, you can find us all over the internet at our handle at FamilyGamersAA for Andrew and Anitra. You can find us really on Facebook, on X, on Instagram, even on TikTok, and also on YouTube. You can find us on YouTube at both at FamilyGamersAA or just by searching for The Family Gamers.
All of these links are in the show notes for every single episode of the podcast. So if you're confused, go to thefamilygamers.com. All of the information is there for all 404 podcast episodes.
I mean, you should just be able to look in your podcast catcher as well. I mean, it should be in there. Yeah. Of course, you can always email us, Andrew at thefamilygamers.com.
Anitra at thefamilygamers.com.
Speaking of your podcast catcher, please don't forget to subscribe to this show. Tell everybody that you know about the show, whether you like them or not, and leave us a review at Apple Podcast or whatever your podcast subscription source is. You can also find us on Amazon Music, on TuneIn, on Spotify, and even YouTube Music.
The Family Gamers is sponsored by First Move Financial. You should go to firstmovefinancial.com/familygamers, and when you're there, you can learn how the team at First Move Financial can help you pile up the victory points in real life.
Mm-hmm. Piles of victory points and piles of connections. That's the goal this week.
All right.
Okay.
Break.
So we're going to go and we're going to try to make some connections with our kids, maybe playing Rock Band. I'm not really sure. But we'll be back in a couple of weeks. So until then, everybody, play games with your kids.